Thank you for joining us today at Miniature Wargaming Labs. Today we'll be painting one of our Stormcasts from the Dominion box set. This will be the Standard Bearer, or the Knight-Vexillor. Now to get started, we're going to prime it Citadel Zhandri dust. We're then going to use some Army Painter gold, the Greedy gold, P3 solid gold, Army Painter shiny silver, Vallejo Silver. Then from the Army Painter line, we're going to use Necromancer Cloak, Ash Gray, Deep Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Electric Blue, and Matte Black. And from the Citadel line, we'll use Ionrach Skin, White Scar, Mournfang Brown, Mephiston Red, and we'll have 3 washes all from Citadel: Drakenhof Nightshade, Nuln Oil, and Seraphim Sepia. So this model, pretty decent to paint. The flag's the biggest pain here. It didn't do much at the back. Just made it all the front. And get this up to tabletop standard. So let's go ahead and get started. To start, I've primed my model in Games Workshop Zhandri dust, and that's because I wanted to use Army Painter's Greedy Gold, and one thick coat does very well on this primer. And so I take my messed up brush and I just put one thick coat. All the gold armor. Watching out for these little flanges here, which can be annoying when you're trying to work quickly. With our first coat of gold on, we're ready for our second. And for that, I am going to use P3's solid gold. It's the same color as Games Workshop's Auric Armor, but it's a bigger bottle and it lasts longer before it dries out. So I'm going to use my dry brush. I'm going to put a bunch on it. You see how much there. Wipe once. And I'm just going to hit the areas that this giant brush can get. So that's going to leave a different, darker color of gold buried on the interior, which is what I'm after, to get a tonal change. So we'll just go around and hit all the golden parts. Now that we have our 2 layers of gold on and they're dry, I'm going to use some wash of Seraphim Sepia. But I only want it over the individual. I don't want it on the flag, but I want it on the metal bits. I want to make the gold on the flag look a little bit different than the other golds of the armor and the metal, and that will allow it to make it look more like a cloth. So we just put one little coating. I'm using my sloppy brush here. Make sure to turn your model upside down so there's no voids in there. Just everywhere we can reach. Just be a little careful around the head since it's so close to the flag. Now while we wait for that wash to dry, I'm going to take some sterling mud and I'm going to texture the base. I figure they can both dry together. I'm going to take my little tool and just put a thin coat on it. You can also use PVA glue and some sand. Don't touch the gold with it, and it'll stain it. Now that everything's dry, I'm going to go back to my P3 solid gold and my dry brush. Just a little bit of gold, wipe a lot of it off, And we're just going to quickly move down the model, pretty much just where the light would hit down to create, you know, a faded effect there. Now what I want to do is color the base, everything except the rocks. Okay, so I got this dark brown. I want something closer to black, and what I'm going to use is Army Painter Necromancer Cloak, and I've already poured some out in my palette. And there's some areas that they've sculpted as the textured dirt, and I put in, and this will allow us to blend it together. So we just take the model, spin it around, and slowly fill in the color. Now I'm ready to paint the silver bits, and for that I'll be using a shining silver. I've already poured some out in my palette. I've got my brush here. So pretty simple. We'll get the male. We'll get his blade here. Don't want to put too much on the blade. I don't want to swamp out the lettering detail. We got the little rosette on his armor here. Use the back of the brush to sketch the top details of the device. And then remember to do his belt buckle. And then we'll do the metal bits of the staff. I'm now ready to paint the blue sections, and for that I'm going to use deep blue from Army Painter. Take my brush here. This is pretty much going to be his tabard, and then his right pauldron over here. And I don't want to get any blue on the little device right here. We're going to paint that white. So it'd be better just to be neat and have to blot out the blue later. And then one of the sections we're going to do is we're going to start working in the blue. So that's going to be a little edge of the flags. Now we got to work really carefully, and I'll probably switch to a smaller tip brush. And the tricky part is these little corners in here. Get in there. So I'll start working across the blue very slowly. This will probably be the most time-consuming portion. Now I'm going to take some Mournfang brown. I'm going to do his belt and little forearm straps. Be careful to work around the silver. get the forearms here. Now if you look around the belt, you got some pouches hanging down. Go ahead, take care of those. Now I also did in brown a little haft right, little grip right there on the sword and on the standard. And don't forget there's little leather straps right there. But now we're going to do Ionrach skin. That's going to be our white base. So what we're looking at doing here is the inside. And so just use the side of the brush without touching the metal armor. We'll do that. We also have a fold, a little cloak around the back here. Very important is the little Sigmar symbol, which is kind of blocked. Now I want to start doing the elements of the flag there. So you can see that all of the Sigmar face is going to be white inside of the golden halo. Then the twin tail meteorites. Just use the side of your brush to trace along the end of the meteorite without touching the blue. Now I'm going to take some Zhandri dust and I'm going to touch up some of the bits of the scrolls that hang off of him and off the flag. And give that a shake. Now what I'm also going to touch up some of the reed work down here. Get those reeds back to Zhandri dust. Alright. Just kind of make nice clean lines here. Let's see, you gotta see where these things begin and end. There we go. Now I took some ash gray and I put it in my palette. And here what we're doing is we're just getting that little rock right there. Or stone. Now I'm going to take some Mephiston Red and I'm going to do the red bits. So the parts I'm looking at are the gemstones. There's one there. Then I'm going to do just hitting the raised surfaces grip on the sword. I want to do this gem in the flag. And we're going to need to do the eyes of the meteor here. Now I'm ready to begin putting wash on this model. I'm going to start with Drakenhof Nightshade. And I don't want to slop it on, just use a little bit. Got a messed up brush here. I'm going to wet the bristles a little bit. And then I'm going to apply it to the male, to the white areas. At this point, don't let it slip off to other areas. Wear it on the blue, the tabard. This is how I'm going to tint the sword. Do this silver over here. Then I'm not touching the gold, work into here. Definitely want to do this blue up here. Now we're not going to do the flag. Now we're ready to apply some Nuln Oil. And take one of my sharper tip brushes, and I'm going to put it around the belt. Tie this thing together. There we go. I want it on the reeds and the stone. Get around this pommel handle. A bit on the gem. Now I'm going to take something a bit bigger. Put this on here. This will tint the Necromancer Cloak to a nice dark worn black color. Very similar to what you see in a lot of Tim Burton movies. While we're at it, let's go ahead and do the banner. See, like how that face is popping out now. Let's get this backside here. I love Gnome Oil. Now I'm going to get some of this excess off, because I don't want it pulling too much into the details at the bottom of the flag. That's looking good. Now while we're at it, let's get some Reikland Flush Aid. And we'll hit these. I always wipe off the excess. Now to get these ones down here, shift back to a smaller brush. There you go, now we're going to let him dry for a while. Now I'm going to take some Army Painter Ultramarine Blue, and we're going to highlight the blue sections there. And so I've already put some in my palette here. And we'll just do the raised edges to get the color and shading that we want. Just stuff where we can tell that the light's going to hit. So we have the robes to do. I want to be careful not to hit any of the other colors. also going to do the pauldron here. I'm going to switch to a tighter brush to do the flag. And we're just going to go around. And with the flag, I'm not going to do as much blue. I'm just going to just trace out, because it kind of looks like sunbeams coming out of Sigmar's image there. So carefully moving in between all these, just trying to make it look like the rays going around like that. Just one light coat should do it for the flag. Alright, so we'll go around, finish up all this blue. Nice little highlight up here too. Now I'm going to highlight the blue further with Army Painter's Electric Blue. And this I'm only going to need a couple touches. So I've got it in my palette. So I'm just going to use this side of the brush. Just trace out some edges there. I'm going to do the flag also. Once again, just using the side of the brush. A little bit will go a long way doing this kind of edge highlighting. And just quick little strokes around this little sunbeam there. Where's my little brush? Alright. Just down this edge. And then this little blue pattern sunburst. I'll just put some little lines here. See, I can, here, let me show that again. You can put this on, go off like that, so you're only left with the shadow of it. Just put on a little streak, and wipe it off. And just focusing on the flag part here, I'm going to break out the solid gold again. Alright, so just set that there. And what I'm going to do is just do a little bit touch up around since we used Nuln Oil on it. And I'm trying to get this gold to look different from the metal gold since it's going to be the fabric of a flag. I'm just going around, putting little spots of gold everywhere to punch it up. Now I'm going to get out the Mephiston Red again, and we're going to punch up the little hearts of that meteor. I'm going to go take just a little bit. I'm going to go trace out the curve. Just put like a little crescent on the front there. Just give it a little contrast. And while we wait for that to dry, I'm going to take some Vallejo Silver. Now I love this stuff because it's like pure silver. Put a little in the palette there. I'm going to take one of my thicker brushes and I'm going to touch up silver parts. Just kind of like a little tiny dry brush. And I'm also going to use it to punch up the metal plates. So imagine the lights coming down. So just do a little edge where light would come down and hit the plate. Now I'm not going to do this on the cloth fabric. I want to make it look like it's cloth. So the purpose of that is to make them look like they're gold, but make it look like they're different materials. So the metal will be done just slightly differently. Put some light streaks in here. And we'll do a little mail. And we'll go around and finish up the gold plates, but first let's do this sword. So something I like to do is just trace the edge, the flat long edges there. Around the bottom here. And then we'll put some light streaks in. There. And do the other side of the sword. There. So I'm just going to go around and touch up the middle parts to my heart's content. I'm happy with how it's covered. Then we'll come back. Now I'm going to go back to my Ionrach skin here. I'm going to work on the little scroll work. And pretty much we're at the stage where we're just doing little touch-ups of the edges there. Try to lighten it down a little bit, but not too much. Just keep going around, lightening it up. Now I'm going to take some white scar. We're going to do little touch-ups to the white pieces here. Specifically, I'm going to get this robe here. And just build it up in layers until you get it where you want it. Take it a little bit right there. And just one more coat. Okay. Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to wipe most of the white off. I'm just going to do a slight little touch of white around the scroll work here, using very little. Alright, let's do the back of that. Alright, now I want to switch to my finer tip brush. What we're going to do is trying to get this little Sigmar face on his pauldron. Slight little touches. Okay, now I want to just do a little line on then we'll go around and start doing Sigmar's face. So just take the tip of my brush, follow the raised areas of the logo. You can put as many layers as you're comfortable with. Now I'm going to take some Army Painter Matte Black. Where'd my brush go? Alright. So you'll notice they have a little other suit that they wear under their armor, and I paint it black. So right there. Tricky. You can also find it on the back of the knees here. Excellent. Now what I'm going to do is that black that I just put in there, I'm going to take the little folds and I poured some Army Painter Ash Gray. I'm just going to touch the tops of those little folds in the black armor, black undersuit. Missed a spot. This should be black right here. More important to get the back of these legs here. Just some lines across the top of those folds. There we go. Now what we're going to do is I am going to dry brush the ash gray on. Got my beat up brush here. We're just going to run it across. The grit there. And just spin this around. And you just color it up to whatever standard you want. Now that we got that done, the paint handle really grabs this thing. Come on, there you go. What I'm going to do is I still have some black poured in here. I'm going to take my tank brush and I'm going to make a nice little rim. So give it a clean look to it.
let that dry. So there's our Knight-Vexillor. Very nice model. Came together pretty well. Well, thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming Labs, and we'll see you next time.